Okay, well, now that we have the fire going, I got a pot of water over the fire to make a bit of a brew. Brought some tea with me. So it's time for me to tell you why I'm out here today. And it is really a wonderful day out here. It is early December, and I think it's supposed to get up to somewhere in the mid 30s today, Fahrenheit. This morning, it started out pretty cool. It was somewhere in the teens Fahrenheit. Not necessarily what I would call cold, but pretty cool. But I came out here today to enjoy some steak. This is my version of the Show Me Your Steak challenge. I'm going to do something that I don't think I've seen anybody else do yet so far. I'm going to do a little surf and turf show us your steak challenge. So, what's the meat and potatoes of why I'm out here today? Well, I wasn't tagged in this challenge by anybody, at least not as far as I know, but I did watch some other folks' videos over the last week or so, and I got inspired to come out and do my little take on this challenge. I actually thought about doing it last Friday night and Saturday. I went out somewhere and the weather was so crummy. The wind was blowing, it was raining. It was raining when I got out there. So I decided to save it for another time. So here I am. The weather's much better today. This challenge was started by, I can't remember his name. I'll have to put it here. The name escapes me at the moment. Anyway, he came up with this really great idea of a challenge where folks go out, cook a steak or cook something, and talk about men's mental health. And this all in an effort to raise awareness for men's mental health. And men's mental health is something that I know a little bit about. Through some of my own experiences and stuff I've learned over the years. I have somewhat of a background in psychology, for what it's worth, not necessarily abnormal psychology. I have a psychology degree, undergrad degree, which I don't use in a practical money earning sense by any means. Yeah, I think my water might be boiling. Yeah, I think that men's mental health is something that I do think in more recent years people have been talking about it more, which is good. Obviously, men have a reputation of, in general, not really wanting to seek help with like medical things. You know, women are more likely to go to a doctor if they think something's wrong. Guys are less willing to do that, often until it gets pretty bad. And it's probably even more so the case when it comes to mental health issues, because there's a lot of stigma involved with mental health in general. So that makes it difficult. A lot of guys really aren't too apt to really want to talk about their feelings, like how they're feeling about things, or just, you know, what might be going on in their head. Women are a little bit more likely to share that type of stuff with others. So sometimes it does take quite a bit for a guy to seek out help if he is getting the impression that maybe he could use some. And I have to say, absolutely do that. Reach out to somebody, even if the first step is just talking to a friend or talking to a coworker, talking to your wife, talking to your girlfriend, talking to somebody. Just reach out to somebody. That's step number one. And just get the ball rolling like that, because that can do you a lot of good, and it can obviously the person you talk to might not necessarily be able to fix the problem, but that can kind of get the ball rolling towards getting some help if you need it. And sometimes even just talking to somebody for more mild things going on is oftentimes enough to really help. You have to, men and women and everybody, we just need to discard this idea that having mental health issues is some sort of a weakness. It's not saying that you're like a weak person or that you're necessarily a crazy person, although I think, like, in my mind, the literal meaning of crazy would mean that you have a certain mental health issue, yes. But, just because you need some help mental health wise does not mean you're crazy, weak, weird, anything like that. I think I would go on a limb to say almost everybody in their life has some sort of mental health, something of some sort. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's any big deal at all. Might be some transient little obsessive compulsive disorder that you go through when for 6 months when you're a kid or something like that. But it falls within this realm. But it's a very common thing. We all have things that are a little bit different about us, and sometimes how we think, how we feel about things, how we perceive certain things, and that's part of being human. So sometimes things just kind of get out of kilter, and you need some help. So absolutely reach out. Sadly, one of the causes of death that's higher up there for men is suicide, and more often than not, suicide is is brought on by things that fall within the mental health realm. You know, obviously, usually depression. And depression can be an awful thing. I mean, I've seen, you know, I've dealt with it myself over the years. I've known people that have dealt with it. I've known people that wound up taking their life from it. And it's a very sad thing, and depression can be a very serious illness that needs to be treated, sometimes very aggressively. In some cases, not most cases, probably. But the worst thing you can do if you're depressed is just stay locked in that downward spiral of despair. You have to break out from that. And I know that when you're depressed, that's the last thing you want to do. You actually, all you want to do is wallow in that despair and that hopelessness. And that's just all the more reason why you have to try to break out of that and talk to somebody and get yourself help, because things do get better. Things can get better. I can tell you that. And in my opinion, having some sort of mental health thing come up in your life is really no different than you catching a cold or the flu or something. It's just something that happens. It's not something that happens to you because you're a weak person or something like that. It can just hit you, and it's really, I don't think mental illness is really necessarily a whole lot different than physical illness. Obviously, sometimes due to the fact that mental illness deals with the mind and with thinking and cognition, there are sometimes things that a person could do that might help make something worse, and there's things that they could do that can help make something better. So it is a little bit, it's mental health stuff is a little bit different than physical health stuff, but a lot of times it's just because you're going through something, it doesn't mean that you caused it or anything like that. But anyway, absolutely reach out if you need it. Just talk to somebody. Don't feel bad about seeking help. Don't feel bad about that at all. Don't feel any worse about seeking help for a mental health issue than you would going to the doctor because you have a cough or something that won't go away. But those are my thoughts on the whole mental health thing. Guys, reach out if you need to. I have my fire burning down. That's what I kept looking down at. Wanted to get some coals established and get cooking here before too long. Cook my steak and my shrimp. I have a T-bone steak. I'm just gonna cook it in a cast iron skillet, which is actually something that I haven't done before with a steak, but I'm hoping it turns out really well. So I'll be talking to you in a bit. The whole talk to somebody and reach out if you need help, it goes for women also. Guys just tend to need a little bit more of a kick in the pants to do it, just because we're stubborn and think we can take care of everything ourselves. But oftentimes when it comes to mental stuff, you need some help. A little half stick of butter. Some garlic. Salt and pepper. Well, I think the steak's as done as it needs to be. Not bad looking at all. Throw some mushrooms in here. I'm going to throw some more butter in here, that way there's more butter to cook the shrimp in. And on go the shrimp. Hopefully there's lots of that garlic flavor infused in the butter now. I scooped out most of the pieces of it. With all this butter in here, I feel like I'm cooking like a French fur trapper or something. This is how we do a Show Us Your Steak challenge here in the wildlands of Kansas. Surf and turf. I have a T-bone steak with mushrooms and shrimp. And this is going to taste really good. Oh yeah, I also have some rye bread to go with it. I think I'm going to wind up taking some of this home. There's just so much of it. This is going to be so good. All right, time to finally dig in. Now some tea. I've never had shrimp over the campfire before. Pretty darn good. Time to cut into this steak. As long as I don't spill it all over myself. I love T-bones because you have the strip steak on one side and the fillet on the other. I think I'm going to save the fillet for a little bit later. Very good, just as I knew it would be. A bit of mushroom. I like that garlic cooked down just perfectly. But anyway, yes, let's raise awareness for men's mental health because it really is an important issue. One that, at least fortunately, people are talking about more these days. You know, obviously there's a lot of discussion about a lot of women's health issues, especially things like breast cancer, and that's good. Because apparently, once upon a time, people barely talked about it due to the fact that the word breast was in it. But we've changed that, and that's good. But there are some things that do affect men that you know we need to talk about a bit more. And this is a really cool way to kind of get a little bit of awareness out there. Due to the fact that I wasn't specifically tagged, I don't think I'll tag anybody else in this video. But I do want to say is I hope that some of you guys out there, guys and even ladies, that if you're watching this and you're inspired to do your own video, absolutely go ahead and do it. You don't have to cook a steak or do a whole surf and turf thing or whatever. You can do whatever you want. You can even do a video where you just do jumping jacks and say, you know, let's talk about men's mental health. But anyway, I'm going to keep eating my food here. I don't think you guys want to watch all that. And this is Gareth with Mountain Coffee Outdoors. I'll see you next time.